Welcome back to Learning About the Brain Part 2. Last week, let's do a quick review. We learned about the different regions of the brain and the different things that they're responsible for. We learned that our brain can grow, learn, and get stronger, just like muscles in our body. Our brains are made up of 85 to 100 billion very tiny building blocks called neurons. Each time you have a thought, feeling, or you do something, you start connecting these neurons together into pathways. Those neurons connect pathways that are like superhighways for the things that we practice over and over again and learn. Things that we don't practice or that we never learn, those pathways tend to fade away and don't become very strong. We have the power to choose what pathways that we build by our thoughts, our actions, and our behaviors. Try to always practice things that are going to help you demonstrate your best self, and let those other behaviors or things that you learn that aren't helping you be your best just fade away. You can practice to be brave, encouraging, and calm, or have positive thoughts and engage in positive actions, even when you're feeling anxious, confused, or upset. Remember, our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors do not need to match our feelings. You can feel anxious and have brave thoughts. You can feel anxious and do brave things. So, remember to encourage those brave, positive thoughts. Keep your neurons and those neurotransmitters in their best shape for learning. And make sure that you eat healthy food, exercise, and rest to ensure that they stay their healthiest they can be. Today, I want you to think about three main parts of the brain that are involved with feelings. So first, there's that prefrontal cortex, or the front part of your brain, and that's our thinking brain. It's responsible for things like self-control, thinking things through, paying attention, solving problems, making decisions, and calming really big feelings. The next part of your brain is towards the back of your brain, and that's the part of your brain that's more involved with the feelings, and that's referred to as the hypothalamus. And there's a strong connection between the back of your brain and the front of your brain. The feelings lets your brain know when something doesn't feel quite right, and that thinking brain will help you make sure that you respond to those feelings in a healthy way. And it keeps you from getting too out of control. But sometimes the feeling brain takes over, and that happens to everyone sometimes, and it's perfectly normal. Your hypothalamus identifies something that might be a threat and doesn't allow you to do something that you really want to do. Or maybe you have to do something that you really do want to do. And if someone tells you you can or can't do those things, then your thinking brain sees that as a threat. And then chemicals get released in your brain, and they cause you to do a reaction that's either considered fight, so you fight against that threat, or you flee or run away from the threat. When that happens, it activates the amygdala, which is an important part of your feeling brain. It's kind of like a fierce warrior inside of you that's there to help protect you. When you're feeling big feelings like anxiety, anger, or sadness, it's likely that your amygdala thinks there's something that it might need to do to protect you. And so it's sending a message to other parts of your brain to act in a certain way. That might be to fight against the danger. Maybe fighting might be like yelling or screaming or arguing or fighting. saying stop or no. Or it might be causing you to try to flee or get away from the danger, perhaps by ignoring someone, hiding from something, or even lying to try to get out of trouble. Today, one of the things I want to show you is my hand, and you can use your hand as a way to demonstrate these three parts of your brain. Also, to help you think about them another way, I'm going to associate them with an animal who has characteristics that match with each of these brain regions. So I think of the wise owl as like that prefrontal cortex. That wise owl is someone who's thinking, clear thinking, has self-control, is always paying attention to everything with those very big eyes. And then that wise owl is a problem solver. I'm going to think of this hypothalamus, that back part of my brain, as an elephant. An elephant never forgets, so it always remembers feelings that you've had in the past. And an elephant is really big. Those feelings and experiences that you have can cause you to have very big emotions. I'm going to consider this, your thumb that's hiding underneath your prefrontal cortex, as a guard dog or your amygdala. A guard dog notices and immediately begins barking to keep you safe. It jumps in for immediate action, and it causes you to have that fight or flight type reaction. So if you get a big feeling and then it sets off your guard dog, once that dog starts barking, then that owl, that wise owl, just flies away. Your brain is smart, but all brains can read things wrong sometimes. So let's get something straight though before we move on. There are no bad feelings, okay? All feelings deserve to be there, but sometimes what you choose to do with your feelings can land you in trouble. Our feeling brain and our thinking brain need to be working really well together to minimize getting in trouble or making mistakes. That doesn't mean that big feelings aren't going to take over and kick your amygdala into action, that fierce warrior or guard dog part of your brain. And if you actually are in danger, it's actually a really good thing. For example, what if you were walking down the street and there was a wild animal? That guard dog, your amygdala, is not going to wait to find out if that wild animal is hungry and out on the hunt, or just lost and wanting to see what it can find in the neighborhood, stopping by to say hi. So that guard dog, your amygdala, kicks into action before it really has time to figure out what's going on. But it keeps you safe from what could happen with that wild animal. The problem with that amygdala is it's a doer, it's not a thinker. It jumps in first and then thinks later. It's overprotective and it can take control even when there's nothing to protect you from. An example of this is when you're not allowed to do something you really wanted to do. Or if you have to do something that you really didn't have on your plan, like maybe homework or a chore for the day. So your amygdala might hear that as a threat to what you really wanted to do. You can't do what you wanted to do, now you have to do something else, and your amygdala feels that's a threat and it sends that thinking owl, your prefrontal cortex, away, and your thinking brain goes offline. When that happens, you might not think clearly and think about the consequences. You might start yelling or screaming. You might even ignore a request from a parent or run away. Those actions are going to mean trouble for you. None of this means you can blame your brain and say it was your brain's fault. If your brain gets into trouble, then you're going to get into trouble too. So you have to be the boss of your brain. It's okay to feel all those feelings, to feel frustration when a plan changes or you can't do what you wanted to do. but you need to be smart about it. So when your feeling brain and your thinking brain can send clear messages to each other, and you've controlled that amygdala a little bit, then you're going to be okay. So to keep your thinking brain strong and keep that amygdala, that barking guard dog, calmed down, there are things that we can do. Things like mindfulness causes your brain to slow down and gives it time to think about the consequences. If your amygdala is barking and your prefrontal cortex is about to fly away, you need to slow things down a bit. You can do that by taking deep breaths. Use something called mindful clouds. And things like that will slow down those chemicals that are getting released in your brain that are creating an imbalance in your thinking so you can get back to your best self. So let me talk to you about a few of those ways you can calm your amygdala down. The first one is called mindful clouds. It's kind of like if you were a cartoon character and you'd have those angry thoughts or frustrations kind of as like a bubble or a thought bubble just floating above you. Go ahead and feel them, think them, and hear them inside your head, and then just treat them like a bubble that you just blow away. Some of those feelings will keep coming back again and again, and you need to acknowledge them, recognize that they're there, take a deep breath in, and blow them away. Another type of breathing that can be really helpful is slow, steady breathing. It's kind of like a calming rhythm for your brain, or like maybe a song, a soothing song that someone might sing to you. So what that calm breathing does is it helps calm down that amygdala and bring your thinking brain back online. So you might still feel sad, angry, or anxious. But if you slow it down so that you can respond in a way that is a little bit stronger or braver, it'll be better for you. When your emotions are very high, you have a very busy brain, and it's struggling to remember to use that strong or deep breathing. If it isn't something that you've done a lot of, it's going to be important to practice these breathing techniques when you're calm. Just like we practice emergency routines at school in the event of emergency, you need to kind of practice them within your own brain to prevent emergencies. So let's think about some ways we can build up and strengthen those neural pathways in our brain to build up a superhighway for reacting to big feelings. So we talked about having the thought bubble and blowing that away. Another idea is some slow rhythmic breathing. And one of the ways that people have talked about this is hot cocoa breathing. You can imagine holding a cup of hot cocoa and you would smell the aroma, that chocolatey smell of that hot cup of cocoa. And then you would hold that smell inside of you, and then you would blow it out and cool off that hot cocoa so it's ready for you to drink. So breathe in for a count of 3, hold that chocolatey smell inside, and then blow it cool for a count of 3. Another method is called this lazy 8 breathing. And so you could start at the star in the center, and as you breathe in, as you go around one section of the sideways 8, you'd pause for a second on the star at the center and breathe out again for 3 to 4 seconds. Whatever works for you. You don't want to be holding your breath too long or taking such a deep breath that then you can't hold it in and let it out on the other side. Some people like to just like make that shape of the 8 on their arm or on their leg, And that extrasensory feeling really helps to calm them down as well. In addition to having the thought bubble and blowing it away, slowing down your breath, another way to really calm that amygdala is to surround yourself with positive social people in your environment. That could be friends, family members, people at school. It's basically people who are kind, calm, and supportive. They'll be there to help you through big feelings and help you regulate your brain. Maybe you're not quite ready to talk it out with someone, then try writing it out. Some people have journals. You could write your thoughts as a letter to someone if you're really angry at someone, or just a letter to yourself. You could put your words down as a poem. Maybe you sketch it out as a drawing, or maybe you even compose a song and write song lyrics. Using words and art is a great way to express your feelings that might be swirling around inside your brain. Surround yourself with people who help you feel safer, stronger, and wiser. And it's also really important for you to be that kind of person for others around you. Your brain will learn best if you take small breaks. Your brain is really interested in learning. And so it's important to expose it to lots of new things and challenges. When you do that and you learn something new, your brain gets excited and there's these chemicals released inside that make you feel really good. Your brain is curious, and so it will pay attention to changes and it will just snap those little things up. So that's why it's important to have small bits of learning. So another thing that's really important is that your sight, your hearing, your speaking, and your movement all have their own memory banks. So whenever you're trying to learn something new, if you can learn it more ways, try listening, writing, touching, and saying what you need to learn, or even act it out. And then repeat the ways that help you learn best, because that repetition is going to really strengthen those neural superhighways that you're creating in your brain when your neurons fire and you send those messages and create those memories in your brain. One thing I want to caution you against when it comes to your brain is to avoid things that might make you think that you're solving a problem, but you're not. Something that gives you a false sense of satisfaction is not really good for your brain. It might help you feel better for just a tiny bit, but it could lead to some bad habits. Let me give you some examples. If you want to grow smarter or braver the next time big feelings hit, escaping a situation altogether is really not helpful. You could take a break from it, but remember to go back to it. Other things that people try to do is they maybe try to feel that intense feeling with food. So then they might eat a non-healthy food, which over time can create a craving, and that might create issues with food. Some people also try to get revenge. And so when you do that, you're really not helping the situation. You're just hurting someone, which could lead to more frustration over time and also some social isolation from the people that you really want to have around you and be part of your team. Some people avoid talking about things and try to ignore them, which can lead to some inner sadness. So avoid these short-term fixes that only help a little bit and try to make a healthy choice based on what we've learned from doctors and scientists and research on ways to calm our body, learn and grow, and make our brains stronger and allow us to create healthier relationships. So remember, you could use breathing. You can just use that awareness of those overwhelming experiences through those thought bubbles. Surround yourself with positive social support, taking breaks, and then practicing what makes your brain stronger and really good. You have the extraordinary power to shape your brain. You know ways that will help you learn and grow into your best self. Don't worry if you make mistakes along the way. You're gonna get carried away by that amygdala. It's going to happen. That's a normal part of how we learn and grow. But knowing how to face new challenges and those uncomfortable feelings will help you grow even stronger. You are a magic maker. You are a legend. Write notes to remind yourself of that. Post them around you. Be brave enough to believe in yourself because there is so much awesome in you. And know that with time, effort, practice, and patience, you can get better at anything. You're amazing. And you've got an amazing brain. I know you. You've got this. It has been so fun growing and learning with you over these past few weeks in this new online format. Nobody is sure yet what next year is going to look like, but you can be sure that we will find ways to connect. That's it for this week. Out the door, dinosaur.